This is Unfilter, episode 261 for November 29th, 2017.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome to Today. And Hoda's here with me this morning because this is a sad morning here at Today and at NBC News. Just moments ago, NBC News Chairman Andy Lack sent the following note to our organization. Dear colleagues, on Monday night, we received a detailed complaint from a colleague about inappropriate sexual behavior in the workplace by Matt Lauer. It represented, after serious review, a clear violation of our company's standards. As a result, we have decided to terminate his employment. While it is the first complaint about his behavior in the over 20 years he has been at NBC News, we were also presented with reason to believe this may not have been an isolated incident. That is the statement from our chairman, Andy Lack. And we just learned this moments ago, just this morning. As I'm sure you can imagine, we are devastated and we are still processing all of this.
All right, it's time to brush off all those crumbs from those turkey sandwiches that you've had over the past week. And it's time again to settle in for another edition of Unfiltered, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly show about the news you shouldn't be watching. I'm Chase. Hitting the bells is Chris.
Hey, buddy, at least one of them.
Oh, my God, man.
There's rumors going around there may be multiple bells in this studio.
There's a few.
We can't confirm nor deny, but we can seem to confirm. Well, Mr. Chase.
By the way, that opening...
What an opening, huh?
Oh, my God, so...
You could see, like, she was choking it back.
When did you find out?
This morning when I got up.
Yeah.
I slept until 7:30.
Yeah, so I'm up at 4:30 a.m.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so, I always kind of glance down at my phone, see if I had any missed calls, whatever. And top breaking news story, I was like, what the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And, crazy stuff.
It really is. Seeing that was, it was really something because you could see, like, all the different networks were, like, really struggling with, like, even how to cover it. Like, here's an example of CNN.
This is sending shockwaves, obviously, through newsrooms across the country, as well as people turning on their morning news this morning. Matt Lauer obviously has been a staple. He was considered just the best one of the best broadcasters of our time. Here is what his co-host, Savannah Guthrie.
Yeah, they all just gushed about him. So we'll get to that. We're going to get to that, and we're going to get to it in the wider context of all of this what's been going on, the court of public opinion, and the new developments in some of the other stories. But we also have some cyber news this week. We also have some serious news from in the world category, quote unquote, what we call our world category, which is major events going on outside the U.S., like North Korea's new ballistic missile launch. We'll talk about that in the show. And then a high note, Chase, that you're going to love this high note because we got a couple of them. Like somebody did a commercial of what if you saw a big pharma ad for weed? Like, what if you saw an ad for weed like you see big pharma commercials?
Dude, you're stealing the ideas of, like, the YouTube ideas. Like, we could make, like,
you're so right.
Yeah.
You're so right. Plus, I got an update on that 12-year-old girl who's going after Jeff Sessions to make it.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. And did Mommy get her joint?
Yeah, I'm going to make sure.
Mommy needs a joint.
All right, so let's start out with cyber.
ASL, buddy.
So this is I'm going to set the stage here and see if you notice something a little different.
Can you imagine your life without electric power?
When the president rolled out his...
Until February 2009, retired Admiral Mike McConnell was the nation's top spy. As chief of national intelligence, he oversaw the Central Intelligence Agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and the National Security Agency. Few people know as much about cyber warfare and our dependency on the power grid and the computer networks that deliver our oil and gas, pump and purify our water, keep track of our money, and operate our transportation systems.
If I were an attacker and I wanted to do strategic damage to the United States, I would either take the cold of winter or the heat of summer. I probably would attack electric power on the U.S. East Coast, maybe the West Coast, and attempt to cause a cascading effect. All of those things are in the art of the possible from a sophisticated attacker.
Now, what's great about this clip is that this is the same shit they've been saying now for years. This is from 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you believe our adversaries have the capability of bringing down a power grid?
I do.
Is the U.S. prepared for such an attack?
No.
So here's where we've come in 7 years. Here's where our industry has come to really step up to the challenge.
All right.
Really take it on and bring expertise into the field to secure America's digital
Well,
assets.
doesn't it seem like every other day we're hearing how our information may have been stolen because a company was hacked? Well, guess what that means? Cybersecurity jobs, they are on the rise, and I'm hearing it's quite lucrative.
Yeah, it's all about pumping money, right?
I had this business plan idea maybe about 15, 20 years ago where I was going to stick a Wi-Fi antenna on my car, and I was going to war drive through neighborhoods. Any open access point that I found, I would go knock on their door.
Would you like me to secure your network?
That's right.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. There you go, you guys. That one's for free. Have fun.
Chase an idea, guy. You run with it. If it works out, kick up your patronage.
That's right. Yeah. 5% and some of the residuals is fine.
So this is what scares me about cyber is that it's getting staffed by people that don't know what the hell they're talking about, and they're filling positions with people that are totally new.
Rachel Harpley from RecruitBit and David Hernandez from Arizona Statewide Cyber Workforce Consortium. They are here to tell us more about this booming industry. Great to have both of you.
Oh, yeah.
And
So
Rachel,
great.
for those watching, what is a cybersecurity
What
job?
is cyber?
That's a great question.
No, it's not. That's not a great question. That is literally not. That's a very basic question for those guys.
Hey, to be fair, yes, it is a softball question.
Yeah.
But it is showing politeness to the interviewee that's saying, hey, thank you for asking a great question because there are people watching at home that may be stupid.
Yeah, but when it's not a great question, it's like the opposite of complimentary.
Yeah, I know, but it's television. You always say it's a good question.
Great to have both of you. And Rachel, for those watching, what is a cybersecurity job?
That's a great question, and it's a wide variety. There's over several dozen types of roles, everything from development, infrastructure, defensive networking, penetration testing, and even less technical roles like risk, audit, compliance, those types of things.
Big. It's a big gamut of different opportunities to get into this world.
So risk, audit, those kinds of roles, those are sort of like people that would check a report that a technical person did against an auditor's requirements and then tell you where you failed, like really kind of just
would you say
middle
that
management stuff.
Part of this would be installing Kaspersky?
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
cool.
Of cybersecurity. And I'm understanding, David, there are so many unfilled jobs, not just nationwide, but here in Arizona.
Yeah, definitely. There's about 6,000 to 7,000 job openings here in Arizona.
Did you know that?
6,000 to 7,000?
I'm going to move to Arizona. I'm only half kidding, too. Like, first of all, I'm sick of the weather. And second of all,
that's for cyber only.
Yeah, I could get a cyber job.
And then you would
dude.
have to live in McCain State. So that's your call.
Yeah, but it's way nicer right now than it is here.
If it's really hot in the summer. I mean, really hot.
Yeah, that's true.
Really hot.
So they throw around a number here in a moment that really sounds fake to me, and I just want to play it and then we'll get done. But see, my point that I'm making here with this clip is how screwed this industry is if this is how they're going about recruiting people.
Oh, no.
Yeah, definitely. There's about 6,000 to 7,000 job openings here in Arizona, and about it is projected that there's going to be about 1.5 million unfulfilled jobs by 2020.
All right, so what are you guys doing? You have a big event coming up to try and fill some of those jobs. What is this event?
Yeah, it's a cybersecurity career exploration event, and the goal is to answer that question, what is cybersecurity? So attendees will get a chance to hear from folks in the career, how they got to it, what they do every day, what does it mean to be a penetration tester? And
So they're really screwed. They're really screwed.
But
If this is their, you like that smiley face?
Yeah, did you see that?
I did see that.
Yeah, but the other thing I was going to think of, are they going to provide links to Google to show you what they mean? Because, I mean, it's like, come on.
Yeah, we need to be recruiting people. So I should make it clear what I do think. I think we need to be recruiting people who are self-motivated. People that have been knocking on the doors of businesses when they were bored because it's what was fun for them. People who are interested in distributions like backtrack and penetration testing tools. And that's the kind of people that you need to be recruiting, not people that are like, what is cyber? What is cyber? Maybe, I've been painting fences for 30 years. Maybe I'll do some cyber.
Now, to be fair, Chris, this kind of recruitment technique has been happening for years. I mean, I don't know if you remember back in the late 90s, early 2000s, where the U.S. Army worked with a video game development studio and they made America's Army because we wanted to recruit people that were video game centric, and first-person shooter clickers and things like that. So to go out and try to recruit in a different way. I mean, I was waiting for the H-1 visa spin on this, saying, "Oh, we can't find qualified people."
That's coming. That's coming.
Yeah.
That is coming. Because when they start projecting the jobs for 2021, those are bullshit numbers.
Oh yeah.
So that's coming. That's the next thing.
Right.
You could red book that sucker, my friend.
Well, and then the only people that are good at this are Russians and North Koreans.
Of course. Well, and sometimes Iran when we need them to be.
Right.
Sometimes ISIS.
Oh, and it is Israel. They do the hacking over there.
Yeah,
too.
that's true. You got the Israel, and then I bet one day we'll give it to the Canadians. I would imagine. So that's Cooper. That's
a new one.
Oh my gosh, it's Anderson Cooper, everybody!
I just had to grab it. I can't help it. I had to watch a lot of Cooper this week. So there is been a story for ages. I mean, I think before this show was a show, but I'm not positive, that Amazon signed a huge old deal with the CIA to set up like a separate EC2 instance. You remember this?
I do, yes.
How do you feel about that? You got any? And especially now that Bezos owns the Washington Post, you got any? And the fact, what's interesting is a lot of the leaks that came from intelligence agencies were through the Washington Post. I mean,
it's weird to me, but at the same time, it's like I don't really trust the government to do things on their own because
infrastructure-wise,
right? Yeah. So it's okay. I'm doing the I'm doing the hand thing, back and forth. I'm like, kind of.
All right, well, let me know what you think after this one.
All right.
The U.S. intelligence community has struck a deal with Amazon for the company to provide data storage. The online giants developed a special project tailored exactly to the government's needs. Jacqueline Vuga explains.
The line between political business and commercial business is getting thinner by the day, especially when it comes to internet and tech giants. Let's start with Amazon, which has just announced a new deal to provide a tailored cloud service to the U.S. intelligence community. This secret region, yes, that's really its name, comes on top of Amazon's existing $600 million contract with the CIA.
Yep, that's right. This is a second deal. This is deal number 2.
Its name comes on top of Amazon's existing $600 million contract with the CIA and other agencies. And the CIA's chief information officer couldn't be more excited about the partnership.
Now, we named it Commercial Cloud Services, or C2S, for a reason. It's because we want to be like commercial. We don't want to be like government. We wanted the best of breed. That's why we partnered with Amazon.
And they aren't alone. Just last month, Microsoft announced a similar partnership over a dedicated cloud for the U.S. government and their partners.
Microsoft is partnering with the U.S. government in the journey to the cloud, providing both infrastructure and platform offerings to enable digital transformation.
Woo. Meanwhile, a treasure trove of connections were uncovered between U.S. politics and internet heavyweights after last year's presidential election.
And I don't know, then you almost consider this in the light of net neutrality too, and how we're centralizing and putting things in silos, thank you, on the internet. It creeps me out more. Although I don't really. A lot of people on YouTube are taking this to the extreme and saying, well, the Echo, here you go, confirmed, the Echo is a CIA listening device.
No.
And I'm not making that leap.
I know.
Everybody knows it's an NSA device, right? I mean, come on.
So you got one side of people that complain that the government is getting too big and they're doing too much on their own. And they need to diversify and privatize. I mean, you see that happening with the space, station and, private companies sending up rockets and things like that. And so the government's going out and going, all right, we're going to go to Microsoft and set up probably Azure or something like that. And they're going to go to Amazon and set up web services and, use them for storage and frame stuff. And then you got people like, whoa, no, we shouldn't let them do that because they're gonna, Amazon and Google and Microsoft's gonna look at our stuff. So it's like you can't have it both ways. Which way do you want it? Do you want to set up another government entity?
Where
structure?
I think where the root of the fear is what happens if that deal is too good to turn down for Amazon. Like that is, a $600 million deal for one, then another huge deal. And so one day, the CIA director comes to Jeff and he says, we know that this Julian Assange character has a couple of S3 buckets on the public side. We're going to need access to that. And you don't say no in that scenario. Or let's say it's some other big famous terrorist, so it's some big name in the news. Baghdadi discovered alive.
Right.
Baghdadi's S3 bucket. I think the fear is that Amazon would be too influenced by that sweet paycheck they're getting from the CIA. You got to figure that makes the CIA their largest EC2 customer.
I see the angle that you're going here. So it's one of those possibilities where this is the kind of a clouded blackmail payola kind of a situation where, hey, we're giving you stuff, and so you should hook us up.
You're always incentivized to make your most important client happy.
Yeah.
You want to keep the number one client happy, and if bringing in nearly a bill in CIA fees means that you can turn that around and invest that in EC2 and kick the shit out of Azure and Rackspace now because you just got a bill from the federal government and they're not going anywhere.
Right.
To me, it seems like it just would be too damn good to turn down, man. It'd be too good. I think that's where the fear comes in.
Right. And I understand the fear could be justified. But until the next government leak happens, I guess we'll just have to hope and pray.
Yeah. In the meantime, we got to worry more about Uber and DJI and all them people.
Don't get me started about Uber.
Did you see what DJI did too?
No.
I got to cover that in one of my shows. It's pretty bad. Okay, so I want to talk about something that actually inspired the segment in the show, and that was the Edward Snowden leaks. Specifically now, I want to talk about the reauthorization of Section 702.
702!
That allows for the FISA provisions that gives the NSA the loophole to whole cloth, I say whole cloth because I like it that way, spy on the Americans. We're talking all content, not just metadata. And it's coming up, and the discussion is heated.
Congress hasn't yet been able to agree on how to fix health care, immigration, or the tax code, but they might be able to come together on at least one thing: entrenching America's surveillance state, which, by the way, is aimed at you. For the first time since Edward Snowden fled to Russia, the FISA law, which enables the collection of Americans' private communications, is up for congressional reauthorization, and Congress seems poised to approve it quickly. Should they?
Now, let's shift and get coverage from another angle. We'll keep going on the same topic, though.
Welcome back, Liberty lovers. You got to listen up because I've got two very important stories that could directly affect your personal freedom and privacy.
Kennedy, right? That's her name?
That's Kennedy.
Yeah, so put up with Kennedy here for a second because the judge comes on and he gives some very interesting details.
Former
and
MTV
each will
VJ.
be coming to a head very soon. Now, first, Congress is poised to extend FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which allows the government to spy on Americans. Second, the Supreme Court expected to rule on a case that will determine whether police need a warrant to track your cell phone when you are suspected of a crime. Each can be easily abused, which is why, of course, we need to fight back. But will our privacy prevail? In either case, joining me now, Fox News senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, what is the status of Section 702 of the FISA law?
Section 702 of the FISA law is the section that permits federal agents to go to a secret court meeting in Washington, D.C. and get a warrant to listen to telephone calls and capture the content of all electronic or digital communication.
We've talked about this before. See, if you recall, the PRISM program gets its name from the fact that it is a prism that splits the fiber optic light that's coming out of the connection for the internet centers. So they have one like an AT&T, they'll have one in Comcast, depending on the ISP. And at the time of the Snowden leaks, and it may be different now, at the time of the Snowden leaks, they had a 3-day entire contents buffer. After that 3 days, they dump it to just the metadata. But for 3 days, they have the entire content, the entire HTTP session, every image that was transferred, your entire email session, anything you downloaded or transmitted. They've captured all of it because they're doing a full prism split. They're splitting the light, and they're getting an exact copy of everything.
Everything.
So when the judge says they have content, that's what he means. See, if you remember, the thing that they really did is they successfully changed the conversation to all about metadata and never talked about this bulk collection that they do in a 3-day buffer. Oh, we just talk about the metadata.
On the basis of less than what the Constitution requires. The Constitution says no searches without warrants, no warrants without probable cause, meaning there's evidence of wrongdoing on the part of the person that the government wants to surveil. The FISA statute does not require the government to come forth with that evidence. They can listen to anybody. But it's worse than that. The whole concept of FISA, the whole concept of a federal agent going to a secret court and getting a secret warrant to conduct secret surveillance is a subterfuge, because in reality, it is far less expensive and easier for the government to simply surveil everyone all the time, and that's what they do. I will say it again. The NSA pretends to be following the FISA statute, the one that expires in a couple of months or 1 month now, and that they want the Congress to reinstate. In reality, they don't follow that statute. They pretend to follow it.
We've seen those abuses. The
Correct.
NSA has actually come out and said, yeah, this is where we crossed the line during the Obama administration.
So what they do is they collect everything. And then when they realize, oh, shit, that's an American citizens thing, we might need that, then they go back and they get FISA clearance. But they already have it.
Right.
They just have to turn it on.
And isn't it all stored like in servers like when New Mexico or Utah or something like that? We did a story about that.
Nevada or something. They're all over.
Somewhere in the Southwest.
But they also have local storage in the big telco closets.
I mean, I remember, we call, the whole Prism covering and, the closet in San Francisco in the AT&T building. So
I think this clip is I think it might be from yesterday. And it's your really good buddy, Representative Poe.
Oh, that's one of my good friends.
Yeah, your good friend.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Poe's. I usually think he comes across saying a bit like an idiot. I'm sorry. I know he's your good buddy.
Yeah.
But damn if he didn't make some good points. And at least he's having this is the one counter voice I could really hear in the whole FISA reauthorization debate.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Poe, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Poe.
Mr. Poe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
Most Americans may not be aware of what is taking place by our government. Our government is spying on Americans, and I think it's in violation of the U.S. Constitution. And all the talk that we've been having the last few weeks, we're missing one of the most basic issues that we hold dear, the right of privacy. Let me explain how it's taking place. Go back to Snowden. We didn't know about all of the spying going on Americans until Snowden revealed that. I'm no fan of his. I think he ought to be prosecuted, but we know information about our government spying on Americans. Let me go and talk about specifically the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act.
Now, there you go. So, and the rest of the clip is about 5 minutes long if you want to find it in the supporter sync. And I'm just glad to hear at least one voice of dissent. That's kind of nice.
And it's one of those things where I agree wholeheartedly. It's one of those things where a lot of Americans, and you get that same attitude over again. Well, if you're not doing anything wrong, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
Because you're losing your right to privacy. I mean, to be private.
Yeah, there is that. There is the fact that it is fundamentally against the Fourth Amendment, so it makes it illegal.
Right.
But I think more so than that, that's sort of a selfish, well, what does it matter if you're not doing anything wrong? It's not about, the thing I always say.
How are we going to get the terrorists, Chris?
You always have to say, well, it's not about you. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're not a pervert or you're not trying to smuggle some money or you're not a terrorist. That doesn't matter. It matters for the person who might be a dissident. It matters for the person who might be a Martin Luther King of the future. It matters for people that are just perhaps more important than you are. Maybe that's just the harsh reality of it. That's the answer. When somebody comes to you and says, well, it doesn't affect me, so I don't do anything wrong, why do I care? Then you say you're a narcissist son of a bitch who only fucking cares about himself, and it's about people that are more important than you. And if you want to go into more detail, you can. I mean, that's up to you, of course. I leave you that luxury.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so let's move on from cyber, although one little side note about net neutrality.
Side cyber.
Nothing, there has actually been a couple of interesting stories that I think I have in the show notes about a bunch of the pro-net neutrality comments turning out to be fake. Do you see that?
Not only that, but news dropped today that what was it, 400,000 or 500,000 comments had Russian email addresses. Now they don't know, obviously, because you can always spoof an email address.
Yeah.
If they actually came from Russia or they were by bots in U.S.
Sounds like it probably was bots.
But still, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but still,
there's so there's still, and now Kim.com's come out, so he's going to build an alternative web. So all
right, well, cool,
Yeah,
sweet.
there we go. We'll get on board with that. We'll
Then
follow that.
Yeah.
Let's cover the news coming out of Japan today.
Oh.
As I woke up, one of the other stories I was seeing is that North Korea had launched another ballistic missile, and so here is the Japanese coverage of that.
Hello and welcome to NHK Newsline. I'm Raja Pradhan in Tokyo. We begin with an update on the ballistic missile launched from North Korea. The South Korean military's Joint Chiefs of Staff says North Korea fired the missile early Wednesday morning. Japan's defense ministry says the missile may have fallen into the country's exclusive economic zone after flying for about 50 minutes. South Korean military officials say the missile was launched from Pyeongsang in South Pyeonggang province and flew eastward. The South Korean military is gathering more information on the missile launch. If the launch is confirmed, it'll be the first by North Korea in over 2 months. Japanese government sources told NHK the government has detected 3 projectiles, and one of them fell into the sea 210 kilometers off Aomori Prefecture in northern Japan. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga said the government will convene a National Security Council meeting.
Now, the UN's also called for an immediate council meeting for their security panel. Just when things are sort of calming down. Just when you hadn't heard anything from Little Rocket Man for about 78 days. Yeah.
Maybe he was looking for another tweet.
People are trying to interpret this in a bunch of different ways. I'm kind of curious to hear what you think of Trump's reply to the news. Trump just sort of looks around the room.
Well, to be fair,
waiting.
He's waiting for the green light.
Yeah.
He's waiting for the director to go.
But he looks like he's on The Apprentice there, doesn't he?
And by the way, this whole setup here, I know it has nothing to do with this particular story, but do you see that there's an empty chair to his right there?
Yeah.
There's another empty chair to his left.
Chuck and Nancy.
Yeah. And
I know. I'm going to cover in the overtime.
the optics in that crap.
I'm going to
stop with this.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Save it. It's going to be in the overtime.
I've been triggered.
So he looks around. He's got his apprentice look on. The audio is a little sucky. It's not. It was just the source. I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do about it. It's the source. But he's pretty concise. And I'm wondering. He didn't really go all out. He didn't say fury and fire this time. But there's been a lot of different interpretations of this line.
Thank you very much. As you probably have heard, and some of you have reported, a missile was launched a little while ago from North Korea. I will only tell you that we will take care of it. We have General Mattis in the room with us, and we've had a long discussion on it. It is a situation that we will handle.
A situation that we will handle. Now,
with lots of talking.
Yeah, I suppose.
Well, that's what we hope. I mean, I don't want to go to war.
Senator Graham sort of freaks out.
Let's get some more on all of this. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is joining us. He's a leading member of the Budget, Armed Services, and Judiciary Committees. He's a busy guy. Hi, Senator, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Want to get to taxes shortly, but let's talk about North Korea. How much closer does this latest intercontinental ballistic missile test bring North Korea to actually threatening the United States with a nuclear-tipped ICBM?
You know what I find interesting about Lindsey Graham is he stepped right into that John McCain role where he's just all in for war. And he's all in for casualties, he's all in for death. Just kind of listen, he's like very cavalier about this. Listen to this.
All right.
Well, I'll let the intelligence community give you that answer, but I believe every test puts them closer. And the president has said, we'll take care of it. Not the United Nations, not China. We'll take care of it. And my hope is that North Korea will realize that he is serious about this. The president is not going to allow North Korea to have a nuclear weapon in their hands that can hit America with an ICBM that can make it to the United States. And if we have to go to war to stop this, we will. And if there's a war with North Korea, it'd be because North Korea brought it on itself.
I think part of the problem here is they don't think the president's serious. And that's just based upon his track record. I mean, just it presents for it itself.
And we're headed toward a war if things don't change.
But that could result in tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of casualties.
There you go.
You've been there. You understand.
There you go.
There you
wow.
go. There you go, Chase.
Yeah.
Even with conventional weaponry, what potentially is at stake along the demilitarized zone? Seoul, a city of 10 or 15 or 20 million people, is only 30 miles away.
Yeah, you're dead right. It's not lost upon me what a war would look like with North Korea. One, we would win it, but a lot of people would get hurt and killed. At the end of the day, the president's got to pick between homelands.
What does that mean? We would win it.
Because I want to win.
What?
So Lindsey Graham.
I mean, winning. What's your definition?
Lindsey Graham is selling a war to Trump.
Right.
That's what he's doing.
Yeah.
Lindsey Graham's going to where he knows he can get Trump's attention, cable news.
Yeah.
And he's selling a war to Trump.
But he's gone to the wrong news channel because CNN's fake.
No.
And therefore not watching.
I'm sure that if Lindsey Graham goes on cable news, it comes across Trump's radar.
I mean, it's not a win. We might win as far as less number of casualties, but what does that mean?
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, we don't win.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know where the hell this is going. I really don't. I'm not ready to make any Red Book predictions on it at this time.
Yeah.
So did you hear this story? Well, just before we get out of world news, this is producer Matt's, I think, I don't want to say favorite, but I think this is the story that shocked producer Matt the most this week.
Oh, the most shocked story of the week?
Yeah. You ready for it?
All right.
Now, this video does include some graphic images, as the disclaimer says. So this is the war crime suspect, Parlajak, I think is maybe how you say his last name.
I'm not sure.
And he was there trying to get retrial, after 20 years in prison, and they said, no, you're going back.
Stop. Please sit down.
He slams some clear liquid down his throat, just slams it down there like a shot. Everybody just kind of looks around like, what the hell just happened? People start to look a little worried. That guy looks really worried now.
Like, what's going on here?
The guy in charge is looking around
I
like,
have taken poison.
what? After he gets the translation, he's like, what?
Monsieur le Président, il vient...
Our client says he has drunk a poison this morning.
Okay, we suspend the...
So they suspend the hearings, they get him to a hospital, and he dies.
Wow.
Yeah, and they had to shut down the courtroom. Everybody else that was there for other things had to go and go to another courtroom later on. They had to declare the room a crime scene.
Wow.
Where'd he get the poison from?
Holy crap.
How did a prisoner get poison in the courtroom in a cup sitting next to him for the entire time? How did that happen?
Oh, let your conspiracy theories go.
It must have been his representation, right?
Oh, totally. That's the only way that comes in. But even still, even going into a setting like this, everything is searched. However, usually they're only looking for metal objects. I bet you it's one of those things where maybe the guy was carrying a water bottle in, like a attorney or whatever. Have it in a cat. I mean, there are probably ways to sneak things in, get things passed.
Look at this. 2 Cukes for you says that he's heading to Seoul in February 2018.
Is he going to the Olympics?
Gonna keep us updated. We got. What is this? What is that? Is that your vibe over there?
That was my watch. Somebody red booking something for us. Thanks, man.
Oh, yeah, nice. We got it down in the red book. Yeah, so I guess we haven't really talked about this for a little while, but we are trying to red book in real time now during the show. We've dedicated a little channel to it, so we're trying to save our red book predictions in a digital form now.
And then, because we can easily recall them.
Mm-hmm, and search,
yes.
Which we have found made it much easier.
Yes.
So I want to talk about the Pervert Parade. It's something that we've tracked a little bit on and off on this show, and it's been building since Harvey Weinstein, although some of you may say maybe since Bill Cosby. We've been sort of building this direction. I think it really blew up when Kevin Spacey got fired from Netflix. And then, of course, just last week, Charlie Rose was fired from CBS and PBS. And there seems to be a pattern. When there's been multiple victims, they almost immediately get fired. And then it comes out a day or two later that there were many victims, not just one. That may be the case with Matt Lauer as we record this. But let's back up a little bit and start with the big news today.
We have breaking news involving a major media figure. NBC News has fired longtime Today Show host Matt Lauer over inappropriate sexual behavior in the workplace. NBC News Chairman Andy Lack sent an email to staff this morning saying on Monday night they received a detailed note from a colleague about sexual misconduct in the workplace. He wrote it was the first complaint about his behavior in his over 20 years at NBC News, but he said they received information that it may not be an isolated incident.
So this is interesting. I'm really curious how this comes about. So the timing of this is email comes in Friday. Matt Lauer fired just days later, like almost immediately after the first.
Well, I bet you.
Sounds like he must have been other evidence supplied.
Well, there's been some more details leaked out on Variety. I think it was Variety.
Mm-hmm.
But they obviously met with him, and I don't think he would be fired this quickly if it wasn't confirmed. I mean, usually companies, they'll do an investigation, they'll talk to both sides, and they probably talk to him, and they're like, I bet you he admitted it.
I got more thoughts on that, so let's go back to the investigation part, but let's get more of what happened.
Savannah Guthrie announced the firing this morning on the Today Show with Hoda Kotb at her side. She promised that more details will be reported as they emerge. Lauer's firing comes a week after CBS fired Charlie Rose following allegations of sexual harassment at the Charlie Rose show. And I worked at NBC many years.
You did.
And
you know,
and I know that Savannah is grappling with this, and it's difficult for them as well.
Well, it's unfortunate to look at, Nora, because I look at that picture and I have a sickening feeling of deja vu. Certainly because we're dealing with our own situation here, but it does send the message and shows that you are not too big to fall.
Yeah, Matt Lauer is sort of like royalty.
Did he mean like $2 million a day? I mean, some ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah,
maybe not $2 million a day, but maybe $2 million a month.
There's an interesting angle with both Charlie Rose and Matt Lauer for these really big money making guys. There's an interesting angle to these.
It's very highly paid.
Yes.
We know that.
There'll be
And
a
termination for cause clause probably.
If this is a termination for cause, then theoretically NBC would owe him nothing, and they would be exercising an option given to them under the contract. Now, his lawyers may very well say, look, here's 5 ways we can challenge this. We won't challenge any of it if you buy us out, and often that happens. But if NBC really wants to send a message to its employees and to the world, obviously, on this particular issue, they may say, we're not buying you out at all. This
is interesting. What he's essentially saying is when when you get busted for pervy stuff where you've been assaulting coworkers, we can cancel your contract clean. There's no fuss, no muss, no legal issue.
It's a lot more simpler than that, to be honest. It's not a matter of just sexual harassment. It's a matter of, you're violating company policy.
Seems
it's pretty simple stuff.
Yeah. But it's I guess.
I mean, it's an egregious violation, but it's still a violation.
If I'm a cold calculating network executive, and I've been looking, I think Matt Lauer has been overrated for 20 years. What's so great about Matt Lauer? He's overrated. He's hyped up. He's overrated, and their shows, they're boring. He's boring. He's vanilla. He's boring. And I don't know, if I was a cunning network executive, I would pounce on an opportunity to cut that clean, reboot that position, no fuss, no muss for the network. I don't know, it'd just be interesting. I've noticed that there's a lot of discussion, and it keeps coming back and back about Clinton. I want to play this clip.
Frankly, when you watch some of the reactions by the president in defending Roy Moore, or at least overlooking the allegations against Roy Moore, were you putting politics ahead of your personal disgust?
No, but we're talking about a child molester. We're talking about a child molester.
But President Clinton was accused of being a sexual predator.
Well,
and of even rape at one point by one accuser.
Why don't we talk instead about how we go forward? Nobody is proud of President Clinton's behavior at the time, but he was being impeached.
But I think the reason there's a relitigation of this is that I think the concern is that we allowed the erosion, that the reason we're at this moment, and the reason it got worse over the last 20 years is because of the way we handled it collectively then. Do you buy that argument?
No, I buy that the election of president.
I don't know. What do you think of that argument? Because it does seem to keep getting brought up again. Like, well, we kind of just gave Clinton a pass. There's one thing about Clinton that...
Actually, it's not just Clinton. I think we give politicians a pass and they shouldn't.
Yeah. There's one thing, though, about Clinton, and now it turns
Including Clinton.
Now it turns out Harvey Weinstein, too, is they have connections to this... This is one of these really twisted things. I'll just let the clip play. But there's this tangled web of connections.
A blockbuster story could be in the making. A former Secret Service agent is threatening to release damaging information on former President Bill Clinton. Dan Bongino says he may release information on Clinton's 26 documented trips on Jeffrey Epstein's private jet, the Lolita Express. Epstein was convicted in 2008 for soliciting sex from an underage girl and served 13 months in prison. For more on this tonight, we go to the host of America's Lawyer, Mike Papantonio.
Anyways, I don't know if that story's legitimate or not, but that'd be really interesting. There's so many accusations going on right now that I start to tune it out. I start to get a little overwhelmed just because I have been on the opposite end of people misunderstanding a situation and assuming the worst about me, and then just sort of going forward, and that just becomes the narrative. Unbeknownst to me, it took me even a while to catch up to it, and it really demonstrated that nobody knows what the fuck's really going on in these situations except for the people involved. And in the risk of playing too much Cucker Tuckerson, I want to just play a little clip here of him warning of a witch hunt that could be in the brewing. And he shares a story I'd never heard of before, and kind of gives him some standing.
As we get them, and we're sure we will. But going forward, we should also be careful that the noble effort to end sexual harassment does not degenerate into a witch hunt. It can happen, as the Washington Post just proved. So with that in mind, two things to remember. First, anonymous accusations always lead to abuses. The right to face your accuser is the cornerstone of justice and has been since ancient Rome. That's why it's enshrined in the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution. It's why we ban star chambers. We don't allow people to accuse others of armed robbery or murder from behind the shield of anonymity. Why do media outlets allow it in cases of sexual harassment? If you're going to name the accused, you ought to name the accuser, assuming it's an adult. News organizations are not courts. They shouldn't take a side when guilt and innocence are in dispute. It's too easy to get it wrong, and they often do. Second, not everyone accused of a sex offense is guilty. Not every accuser is telling the truth. I learned this the hard way a number of years ago when I was accused of felony rape by a woman I'd literally never even seen. She was a certified public accountant in Indiana, an upstanding member of her community, and also apparently delusional. Her claims were grotesque, but they were highly specific. The assault, she said, took place in the back room of a restaurant in Louisville on a specific day at around 10:30 p.m. She included loads of graphic and horrifying detail. It was stomach-turning, and yet none of it was true. I spent the next 2 months trying to stay out of jail. I couldn't tell my children because I knew they'd be ashamed. I couldn't tell my employer because I knew I'd be fired immediately. I spoke only to lawyers, and I paid them a fortune. I took a polygraph exam from the former head polygrapher at the FBI. I never stopped worrying that the charges would become public and destroy my life. Everyone accused of a sex offense did something wrong. Everybody knows that, and I knew that no one would believe otherwise. This isn't a defense of sexual harassment or misbehavior, obviously. It's just a reminder that real life is complicated, more complicated than sermonizing on Twitter. Sometimes the mob is wrong. Sometimes the innocent are crushed. That's always a tragedy, no matter what the charge is.
I think that last point there about the mob is what sort of got me a little like, something about this doesn't feel right. There's a lot of mob mentality to this.
Guess what, Chris? You're going to be shocked like this. And I think like my haters are going to be shocked by this. I fully agree with Tucker Carlson on this. Tuckerson.
Yeah.
It's true. Companies don't have to even share whatever, reasons why they're getting rid of somebody. I mean, depending on the state that you're in, they could just get rid of you because they just want to get rid of you. And those are the right to work states or whatever whatever that name is called. I agree. Now, at the same time, how do you, if you're an NBC or CBS, how do you objectively report something that is an internal HR issue when it involves your on-air talent?
Yeah, and my prediction would be, not officially, but my suspicion is that we will hear more by next episode. Probably more accusers will have come out.
Right.
Just because the pattern has been that we have witnessed, if it's Al Franken level, you don't get fired. If it's Charlie Rose or Kevin Spacey, then they get fired, and then like 2 or 3 days later, like a whole nother spat of accusers come out.
Right. And it's one of those things for me where, I've heard the argument, well, why didn't these women come out 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or whatever the case may be?
Jeez, but these people are powerful people.
Right, and no one, and I also stand the statements, well, geez, these guys, should have their right of day. And you know what? I assume with NBC, for example, they're paying this guy a crap ton of money, okay? He is their face for morning TV for a very long period of time, and he's a very popular guy. NBC Today's Show gets really good ratings, okay? So it's not like, he's a sucky guy that they were trying to get rid of him, right? So this accusation...
He is a bit of a snore.
Yeah, but you know what? People liked him, that sort of thing.
I guess he's comfortable.
Yeah. So people were watching him, right? And then so this accusation came to light. And no doubt that they went to Matt and were like, so is this true? What's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to know the truth. And as soon as he told them the truth, they made this move.
Yeah.
And so I don't think this is one of those cases where, the company is going after him. Now, granted, in the past, we've seen companies like Fox, for example, with the whole Bill O'Reilly situation, and they tried to sweep these things under the rug because the talent, the face of their show and the face of their network was more important to them internally for the bottom line.
It also seems like there's a protocol now. Like the companies have wised up and said, "Oh, when this happens, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're Charlie Rose. It doesn't matter if you're Matt Lauer."
It's a big image to protect as well, because major corporations, Fortune 500, 100 corporations.
What do you think?
Really? Well, hold on. Let me finish my thought. They've always preached, and you and I have gone through the corporate training. Sexual harassment is wrong. We have a zero tolerance for that, and they cannot have an example of some guy being above that.
But what do you think now of Brywai in contrast?
Well, the lying. Well, first off,
it's not nearly as bad as this other stuff.
Well, he got demoted.
Yeah,
he didn't lose his job.
Yeah, he could come back. He could work his way back up now.
And I've always made the Red Book prediction, and I thought he would have been back.
Maybe he'll be on the Today Show.
He'll
take Brywai's spot. He'll take Matt's spot. Brywai will take Matt's spot.
It's got to be at least 6 months down the road, because if they do it too fast, they're going to go, "Oh, the liar's on TV now." So you got to gradually work him into it. But that's not a bad idea.
I do worry a little bit about the mob turning this thing into a witch hunt, like a pervert witch hunt. And at the same time, I think there should be a cleaning out. The other time,
you mean a purge?
Yeah, a purge, a pervert purge. That's pretty good. Actually, that could be somebody should suggest that.
Yeah, pervert purge.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I just worry that as somebody who has been sometimes not anything nearly this bad, nothing like this, but it's just I have seen this go the wrong way. Yeah. All right, I want to change gears. I want to shift gears to the high note. So if we have anything in the sack, I can.
Well,
I can hit the pause button right here.
Nothing big in the sack, but I just want to remind everybody that every morning, every Wednesday before we do a show, I send out a note to Club 33. So make sure you're checking your inbox. Make sure
Hello, everybody.
It's not jumping into spam, because usually, we have a full packed segment, and right now the sack is a little empty. I guess Amazon didn't deliver today. So
the problem is Veritunda didn't get a chance to put one in there because he was too busy petitioning me in the pre-show to play a video.
Yes, but I do have a prediction that maybe coming around the holiday edition, we might open up the sack to all patrons who support us over at patreon.com/unfilter. So
reclaiming my time.
So before Maxine, I give you your time back, I just want to say big thanks to all you guys who support us on Patreon.
Yeah, patreon.com/unfilter. Thank you guys very much.
Definitely.
And we have a segment dedicated to you coming up, the overtime, in just a little bit, just a few moments.
Yes.
But first, the high note, Chase.
Mommy needs a joint.
Give Mommy that joint.
There is a celebrity now on the scene that is advocating pot. And I want to see if you can guess who the celebrity is before they say.
Is this What's My Line? Because I love that game show.
It sort of is, yeah. It's sort of like, who's that celebrity?
Legalize recreational marijuana in Illinois is getting some star power help. CBS 2's Susanna Song live at the Thompson Center with more on one man's crusade to make that happen. Hi, Susanna.
All right, so your hint is it is a male celebrity. Are you ready?
Can you give me another clue?
No, dude, it's a male celebrity, dude. What's wrong with that? Come on now.
All right, well, we're playing 20 questions. All right, are they older than 40?
I don't know. Here, I'll give you another hint.
Good morning. Yeah, should recreational marijuana be legal?
Oh, that's your hint.
Should
you don't have any guesses? I'll tell you. He's a Seattle local.
Oh, Seattle local. Rick Steves?
Yes, it is.
Oh, my God!
Holy shit! Across the country and no different right here in Illinois. Travel expert Rick Steves is testifying at
full disclosure right now before you guys accuse me of rigging it. I pulled that out of my ass.
You did good. I thought you'd get it, actually. I just had a sense you'd get it.
Because as soon as you said Seattle and celebrity, television, oh my God.
Yeah, Rick Steves, travel expert.
Travel man.
Travel expert Rick Steves is testifying at a state Senate hearing right now.
This is crazy.
And this is what he told us earlier today.
Woo! What we need to do is take that black market down and turn it into a highly regulated and highly taxed legal market so that we can gain credibility and focus on the real risk to young people in our society, which is hard drug abuse.
Steve says prohibition does not work. He says this isn't about being pro-pot. He knows it can be dangerous, but says it is time to stop making it criminal. His travels in Europe opened his eyes. He also studied the effects legalization has had on Colorado and his home state of Washington. He says more people are not using it. State Senators Kelly Cassidy and Heather Steens are the lead sponsors of a bill to regulate cannabis. They estimate legalization could generate up to $700 million for the state every year.
And by the way, you know, I know some of our people in our chat right now are saying, "Rick, who?"
Yeah, it's a total local joke for fun.
Well, not only that, but honestly, unless you are a heavy PBS watcher, you're not going to know.
He's definitely over 40 too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just fun. It's just funny to have like different people go and then become advocates.
Yeah.
New York is showing signs of wanting the pot chase.
The idea of recreational marijuana appears to be gaining popularity in New York.
A new survey is out. It's found that 62% of all registered voters out there support legalizing and taxing marijuana.
And it's probably even higher than that, right? Because that's 62% that were willing to say it.
That's right,
Yeah. All right, so your good buddy.
My friend.
12-year-old girl that's suing AG Sessions to make marijuana legal.
So she can have a better quality of life.
Yeah. I'm going to warn you, you should, if you have a echo nearby your speaker, you may want to mute it because her name is close to the trigger word of your lady tube. So you have been warned.
Hey, my tube's computer. What are you talking about?
My lady tube got triggered when I was getting this clip a whole bunch, and so I wanted to pass because she triggered my tube this clip triggered my tube like crazy. The girl does well in this interview, but she's a little shell shocked because it's kind of an intense interview on Fox, right? But she does good. She does pretty good, and at the end she really wraps it up.
So is the trigger like OK Google?
No, her name.
Oh, I know. So is it Google?
Yeah.
A 12-year-old girl from Texas is suing Attorney General Jeff Sessions and hoping to make marijuana legal nationwide after she and her family were forced to move to Colorado, where it is legal, so she could use it to treat her seizures. Right now, medical marijuana legal in just 29 states.
Wait, in just?
Yeah.
That's like the majority.
I know. Whoever this family has for legal representation, and maybe he's coordinating the PR outreach, but they're doing a really good job of getting this girl's message out there. And what's great is she is well-spoken enough that she just makes her own spokesperson.
That's what we're now joined by Michael Hiller, New York attorney, and that 12-year-old girl herself. She joins us now, Alexis Bortel. Alexis, thank you for joining us. You call yourself a medical refugee. Explain what that means.
And you can tell she just immediately kind of gets a little shell-shocked because this is a pretty, you're in a room with lights and a camera.
And to be fair,
and on a delay.
Yeah, you're on a delay. She's probably got an earpiece on for the first time ever in her life. Oh, God.
Well, it means that in Texas, I had seizures. And because I had seizures, I tried over just several drugs, none of which worked. And they either did nothing or just made the seizure worse or come in a different form. Well, we watched this documentary, and it showed that cannabis can actually help treat seizures. So one night I had the worst seizure of my life. After that, our doctor actually said that it would be best if we had to choose between brain surgery and moving to Colorado to get my medicine. Haley's Hope is what it is now because it is illegal. So we were basically, after talking to many politicians, forced out of Texas, and we were forced to move here in Colorado because it's illegal in Texas to get my medicine.
Got it. Very well put, Alexis. Michael, to you, you are representing Alexis. So she's suing Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General of this country. You're suing so that all states should make medical marijuana available? Is that the suit?
Well, the suit is actually to invalidate the Controlled Substances Act as unconstitutional.
Now that is new information.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
And I like that a lot.
And you know what? I wish that the news organizations would have led with that last week. Because that's a more
that's how you're going to do it.
Yeah, that's the way to attack it.
So here's what's happening: this is something that we got to figure out what's going behind the scenes. If anybody can help us dig this up, this guy has got to be $1 million lawyer. And they have coached this girl. They have themselves a 12-year-old, well-spoken, intelligent medical marijuana patient who is their spokesperson. And they're just suing Sessions is a headliner. Yeah. That generates headlines. And then you then come at it with a practical plan of actually how to take it down federally. This seems to me like it's well organized.
Yeah, because if they would have just said, well, I'm suing Jeff Sessions, and there's no kind of legal, like, what are you suing really for? We didn't know that. Now we do. Oh, my.
Yeah, and
it could be a ball game.
There'll be a sign here in a moment where she's been obviously coached, and I think this is good because I think this is going to work. This is a mix that could really win, especially when voter opinion is all pretty positive.
Medical marijuana available? Is that the suit?
Well, the suit is actually to invalidate the Controlled Substances Act as unconstitutional. Right now, cannabis is a Schedule I drug under the Controlled Substances Act, which means federally it's illegal, which means that Alexis can't travel to Washington to lobby her representatives. She can't really travel across state lines safely. And so what we're trying to do is invalidate it at the federal level, and that we believe will pave the way towards legalization throughout the United States. As of right now, 29 states have already legalized cannabis.
How hopeful are you that you can make ground with this?
I don't think we've ever been in a better position than to legalize than we are right now. The evidence we've collected and the facts we've uncovered really make clear that the United States government knows that cannabis is actually safe and medically effective. But for some reason, the United States government continues to render it
you know why. You know
for some reason.
For
some reason.
I know he can't say it, but we all know why.
He doesn't want to say. He doesn't want to say it on television that's sponsored.
I mean, you could say 3 reasons off the top of your head right now, and you would be right on all 3.
Yeah, except for a lot of those make money for the television studios.
Yeah, that's what I always say.
But for some reason, the United States government continues to render it illegal for people like Alexis, who desperately need the medication to preserve their health and their lives.
Alexis, if you had a chance to talk personally with Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, what would you say to him?
He did. They triggered it from our headphones.
It triggered it, yeah.
From our headphones. Oh, because there's a pair of headphones down on the ground.
Oh, yeah, it's really close. Actually, it's right above it. It's right there.
Oh, yeah, that's totally why.
Yeah.
So if it's triggering yours, it just got ours.
Sorry, NSA. We didn't mean it. Go ahead.
What was the question?
What would you say to Jeff Sessions if you had a chance to talk to him?
Right. Now, thank you. This is the part where you can tell I think she's been coached. To me, this is the sign that if the guy asks you something that's a little tough or you think you're not sure what to say, you can throw it to me.
Standby answer.
Yeah.
Well, my lawyer can kind of answer this too, but
yes.
I mean, I'm glad to take that, Alexis, if you'd like. Go ahead, Alexis.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
just very quickly.
Okay, cannabis has saved my life. If I stayed in Texas and got brain surgery, who would have known what would have happened? I could have died. Seizures, they're really scary because just imagine being stuck in your own body. You can't scream, you can't say anything, you can't call for help. That could kill me.
We'll have to leave it there, Alexis. Very well put. Thank you both, Michael and Alexis.
Pretty good, huh?
Yeah, man, I really hope for the best for her. I really do.
Yeah, and I think
it's a good story.
I think there's something going there. They got a good story. They got a good lawyer. They got a good publicist. They got a good headline-grabbing lawsuit. Something. This feels like that's because put together.
And the more I think about it, and I know I'm paraphrasing here, but the Controlled Substance Act and and how they've cataloged, and I read this in the old Red Book where they were going to delist from 1 to 2
or deschedule
it.
Yeah.
Well, the scheduling, I think it says like if it's a Schedule 1 that it's been proven that it has no medical benefits whatsoever or something along those effects.
Yeah.
There has been studies. There has been many medical studies. Now, I know nothing widespread like a government study, but there has been studies done to show the medical benefits of this drug. So for them to blatantly say, well, I mean, I think they can have a case right there. So it's going to be interesting to follow.
Now, Hadia found this one, and I asked her to send it into the show because I just thought this is great. This is what if we treated marijuana ads like big pharma ads, and this will wrap up our high note for this week.
Do you have trouble falling asleep because of your Adderall? Have trouble waking up because of your sleeping pills that you take because of your Adderall? Are you left in a fog from Xanax and constipated by Vicodin? If you answered yes to any of these questions, it's time to talk to your doctor about weed. Weed is a twice daily, am I right? Supplement that's been scientifically proven to treat many of the side effects that you're usually prescribed pills for.
I can't tell you how many of life's little moments I missed out on because of the constipated fog I was in after my doctor prescribed Vicodin and Xanax. my daughter's first steps, walking her down the aisle. I was done being spaced out and messed up on the toilet all the time. That's when I talked to my doctor about weed.
Weed is non-habit forming, no matter what big pharma or your middle school DARE instructor tells you.
It was tough seeing my dad in pain after his accident. It was just as tough seeing him zonked out on prescription pills. He was so forgetful. But now, he won't stop remembering stuff.
You remember that first episode of Lost? And they were in the jungle, and you were like, what is that? And then they looked back on it, it was a polar bear? I don't think they ever explained that.
Weed include extreme nostalgia, hunger, drowsiness, spontaneous laughter, and a newfound appreciation for the songs you already thought you liked.
Hey, do you guys remember Ace of Base? That was a cool group.
Symptoms of weed do not include insomnia, loss of appetite, nausea, headaches, muscle spasms, inflammation, seizures, physical dependency, or the risk of overdose. So if you're one of the 119 million Americans taking prescription drugs and suffering from these symptoms, weed might be for you. And if you're not taking prescription drugs but just want to chill the f*** out, weed might also be for you. Weed. What side effects, man?
See your doctor today. Oh, that was good, man.
It was fun.
That was fun. Nice, and put a nice smile on my face.
Good.
And by the way, Ace of Base is really good. Anyway,
I got a fun one for the outro and the overtime too. If you're sticking around, if you're done with your meat and potatoes,
all right.
You don't have any room for apple pie or pumpkin pie.
All right.
A little whipped cream on top. That's okay. We got some partying wisdoms for you, don't we, Mr. Chase?
That's right. You know, while you're putting up the Christmas lights this weekend, you might want to, I don't know, keep on track with what Chris is doing, like maybe with his vlog.
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
Check out the Twitter feed.
Oh,
go over there.
Twitter feed.
Yeah, well, I mean, because if I ever were to post a video, you'd find it out on the Twitter feed.
Is that twitter.com/ChrisLAS?
Yeah, I would recommend YouTube, except for their subscription system is bonkers.
YouTube.com/Chris Fisher.
That would work
well?
if you took a stab. Also,
yeah.
Go check out recent user error. Big changes coming to the TechSnap program, which were described there. New episodes of TechSnap. Total reboot coming very soon. Check that out.
Oh.
Lots of stuff in the pipeline.
Nice.
And thank you to our patrons at patreon.com/unfilter. Mr. Chase.
Yes, Chris.
Now, people want to find you throughout the week. First place you want to send them.
First place, my Twitter. The verified check mark is still there. They haven't pulled it from me. Twitter.com/Nunes. N-U-N-E-S.
Anything else? Got anything else? Come on.
YouTube.com/GeekGamerTV.
I need one more.
And the Discord. Discord.gg/GeekGamerTV as well.
Solid. Speaking of the Discord, I should mention there is an Unfilter channel dedicated.
Yes, there is. And we're there every Wednesday.
That's what you're seeing up on the live stream, and it's persistent. It remains afterwards. If you saw the video version, you want to go back and look at the chat log, go to discord.me/Jupiter Colony and look for the Unfiltered channel, and that's where we hang out during the live show. We really like it. We appreciate when you go there. Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar for that live time, and join us next week, won't you? We really like that too. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning this week's episode of the Unfiltered program, and we'll see you right back here in December next week.
Oh, yeah! Woo!
I do whine because I want to win.
Hello, everybody.
I say Boulder Dash.
Batten down the hatches and gird your loins. Unfilter's not over yet. In fact, it's kind of just getting started. It's overtime! Thank you to our new patrons over at patreon.com/unfilter who stay woke. Our new subscribers this week, Helen Slider, huh? I feel like that's a message there. I like that one. Renegade MMXV. Oh! Ray S. And Martin. Thank you to our 4 new subscribers over at patreon.com/unfilter. If you'd like to help us pick up the momentum for next week, we'd really appreciate it. We tend to see people roll back as the holidays come. People sort of roll back, and of course, the work doesn't stop here. In fact, sometimes when there's not really something massively going on in like the national news, these shows are harder because there's so much more crap to sift through, and there's less people supporting the show. So if you would like to help break the trend, patreon.com/unfilter, much appreciated. Let's start with the Oh Nancy segment this week. You guys know this is generally where I like to give Chuck and Nancy a hard time, but this one, I'll just let the drama unplay for you. It almost is like something out of a comedy version of The West Wing.
President Trump tweeted while you were in the other show at 9 o'clock. He tweeted, meeting with Chuck and Nancy today about keeping government open and working. Problem is they want illegal immigrants flooding into our country unchecked, are weak on crime, and want to substantially raise taxes. I don't see a deal. Top Democrats say that they are pulling out of the White House meeting with President Trump this afternoon. Kristen, is that because of this tweet or is that because of something else?
Yeah, they got their feelings hurt. So let's dig into this a little bit. So this meeting has been in the works for months, and it was denied, then it was on, then it was off, and there's a clear reason. There's a clear reason as far as Chuck Schumer is concerned, but Trump ain't having it. He's slamming them the first second he got in his first press conference today.
That we will handle. With that being said...
That being said is we're going to do something about North Korea. So the press is here to get information about North Korea and what the U.S. is going to do about this new launch. He goes, okay, we're going to handle it. But with that being said...
Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi did not show up for our meeting today. I'm not really that surprised. We have a lot of differences. They're weak on crime. They're weak on illegal immigration. They want the illegal folks to come pouring into our border, and a lot of problems are being caused, although we've stopped it to a large extent, as much as you can without the wall, which we're going to get. Before this meeting and before this missile launch, they've been weak on military in terms of spending. They're very hard to get for military. They want it for a lot of other things, but the military is always secondary to them. The military, to me, is number one. We won't be here without our powerful military. We're building it up stronger, bigger, better than ever before.
Yeah, we are.
Matters can testify to that. And the other thing, they want tax increases, and we want major tax decreases. So they decided not to show up. They've been all talk, and they've been no action.
So he just gives it to him. He just blasts them right there. And, of course, there is a return by Schumer.
Mr. President, we have a long to-do list before the end of the year, and time is running short. We had hoped to make progress with the administration on these issues in a meeting this afternoon. Unfortunately, this morning, instead of leading, the president tweeted a blatantly inaccurate statement and then concluded, I don't see a deal.
Mommy, Donald hurt my feelings on Twitter.
The president said, I don't see a deal 3 hours before our meeting, before he heard anything we had to say.
Now, we all know, of course, we don't know, but most of us that have been following Trump have watched this pattern of behavior over and over again, and he's even written about it in his book. Well, his ghostwriter wrote about it. It is a negotiation tactic. It is a classic Trump negotiation tactic. And I would submit to you, audience member, that Schumer knows this. Schumer knows that Trump's trying to hard roll them, and Schumer knows that it's mostly about the optics of this meeting. And so that's why he's not giving it to Trump.
Given that the president doesn't see a deal between Democrats in the White House, Leader Pelosi and I believe the best path forward is to continue negotiating with our Republican counterparts in Congress instead. Rather than going to the White House for a show meeting,
that
won't result in an agreement from a president who doesn't see a deal, we've asked Leader McConnell and Speaker Ryan to meet with us this afternoon.
You hear the tone he uses there? Do you notice that sort of mocking parental tone that he switched to right there? That's digging right into Trump. We've asked the adults to work with us.
From a president who doesn't see a deal, We've asked Leader McConnell and Speaker Ryan to meet with us this afternoon.
Yeah, so you can imagine that sort of it got Trump upset. The problem is that they don't really even make their own best advocates. You know what I'm saying? Like they're in these positions, these very, very public positions, and they have to be extremely scripted to even come across remotely legible. And when they go off script, they often end up undermining their point.
People want to go do some other things, that's up to them, but that's not where our focus is. Our focus is on that.
Total brain freeze. This is something else that Nancy Pelosi needs to work on. Look, if you're going to have brain freezes all the time, don't stare dead into the camera like a deer in the headlights when your brain locks up. Look somewhere else, for God's sakes. Don't stare into the camera like you always do. It feels like you could at least coach yourself on that.
Public has questions about the fitness of this president to be...
I have questions about your fitness.
Public has questions about the fitness of this president to be president, and that's a legitimate discussion. But our focus, our energy, our purpose...
Oh, there it is. Okay.
...is to get a better deal for the America's working family.
She's still going with that better deal. She's still going with that better deal slogan, and she can't even bring it home at the end.
A better deal for the America's working families.
You know, that's the problem, is when they go after Trump on the health, and then they can't even get 30 seconds through a speech. That's pretty rough. And it's when you see even like Hillary in public, at least me, I am struck by what a much better speaker she is than Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or I'm forgetting the pervert that runs the DNC. What's that guy's name? That guy. None of them are very good public speakers. But Hillary's really well trained. I don't believe her. She doesn't come across as genuine, but she's well trained and she's well spoken. And I think that in some ways that's going to give her some relevancy in the party, just because the other aristocrats, the other corporatists that are running the party can't speak. They just can't really seem to speak in front of a camera without screwing it up. Of course, Hillary has her own problems.
Go, Cucker! An Obama appointee in the federal government says he was marginalized and even threatened by his superiors simply because he tried to raise the alarm about classified information that resided on Hillary Clinton's private email server.
So there is a story, this is it, about a whistleblower coming out. So before we were even talking about Hillary's emails, someone in the intelligence agency was onto it. I suppose it's not that hard if you just look at the domains. And they figured out that there's a problem here, and he tried to blow the whistle.
Our Catherine Herridge has that exclusive tonight.
There was personal blowback to me, to my family, to my office.
Few people know more about the Clinton emails and the fallout than Charles McCullough, the former internal watchdog for the U.S. intelligence community.
What should the American public know about those 22 top secret Clinton emails?
I've heard people say this is overblown. I've heard people say this is much ado about nothing. Had the information been released, there would have been harm to national security.
So putting lives at risk.
Absolutely. Sources and methods, lives, operations.
Speaking exclusively to Fox, McCullough says he went to Director of National Intelligence James Clapper about a year before the presidential election. The intelligence agencies had just found their classified information in the Clinton emails.
He read through these affidavits very thoroughly, and he said this is extremely reckless. And he mentioned something about the campaign will have heartburn about that or something.
Shortly after, McCullough says his team was marginalized.
You felt you were on your own in this.
I was totally on my own, and I was told by senior officials to keep the director out of it.
You drafted this letter in January 2016.
Sure did.
In the letter, McCullough told Congress that emails beyond top secret passed through the former Secretary of State's unsecured personal server.
All of a sudden, I became a shill of the right. I was told by members of Congress, be careful, you're losing your credibility. There are people out to get you.
By February 2016, Clinton campaign emails released via WikiLeaks suggest McCullough was a target.
I think there was certainly a coordinated strategy. In fact, I not only think it, I think it very, very much so.
Based on evidence?
Yes.
Even though the FBI email investigation was far from complete, the Clinton campaign nailed down its talking points.
Was there an effort to deliberately mislead the public about the classified emails?
Absolutely. There was an effort certainly on the part of the campaign to mislead people into thinking there was nothing to see here. But frankly, the thing that disappointed me the most was the president saying,
there's classified and then there's classified.
A lot of people in the intel community spend a lot of time keeping secrets secret. And to sort of inject that sense of confusion into people, I don't think was altogether responsible.
As Election Day approached, McCullough says the threats went further, singling him out and another senior government email investigator.
You were given a warning?
I was told that we would be the first two to be fired with her administration. That was definitely going to happen.
Is that how it's supposed to be?
No, I was, in this context, a whistleblower. I was explaining to Congress, I was doing exactly what they had expected me to do, and all of a sudden I was the enemy.
More than 2,100 classified emails passed through Clinton's personal server, and to this day, no one is accountable.
If you had done this, what would have happened to you?
I'd be sitting in Leavenworth right now.
Fox News asked a spokesman for the Clinton campaign, the office of a senior Senate Democrat, as well as the former director of national intelligence for comment, but there was no immediate response. McCullough recently retired after 26 years of government service. He told Fox News today that he's grateful now to tell his story, Tucker.
There you go. So should we continue? Let's listen just a little bit more. But not a lot new here other than that there was apparently movement internally. And I like that the Clapper's response, that'll give the campaign heartburn. What a dick.
And that is the story. Catherine Harris, thank you very much for that. Richard Goodstein advised Hillary Clinton's 2008 and 2016 campaigns, and he joins us tonight. Richard, this isn't really a political story so much as it's a story about bad government, corruption. I mean, it's kind of a classic whistleblower story. Here's a guy who's a permanent government employee. He's the inspector general. He's not some low-level character. And he finds wrongdoing, he brings it to light, and his job is threatened. I mean, that seems like something you want to get to the bottom of.
So the predicate for your question, finding wrongdoing and so forth, let me tell you why I take issue with it. I will take serious issue the minute that you look into a real threat to national security, which is the president taking the Russian foreign minister and ambassador.
Oh, boy, here we go. So you get I think we don't really need to keep going. I thought we'd give him a little bit of rope and then, he kind of just talk himself. Speaking of Russia, though.
Sources tell CBS News 2 more Americans have been targeted in a mysterious sonic attack overseas. One of the victims worked in the U.S. Embassy in Uzbekistan, according to a source. Similar attacks have been reported by American diplomats in Cuba. Our sources say the latest incident suggests Russia might be involved in the attacks.
Oh, so you guys have probably heard, I think there was an article, The Sound in Havana, this sonic attack that was destroying people's hearing. Some people speculated it was the Cuban government. Some said, well, maybe it's a CIA weapon. Others said, well, no, now CIA people are being attacked. We have a little additional story here. And of course, surprise, shocker, it's Russia. You knew it.
CBS News Radio's Steve Dorsey broke the story in August. He's in Washington with the newest information. Steve, good morning.
Hey, Steve.
Good morning. The incident in Uzbekistan was reported in September and involves a USAID officer and his wife. A U.S. government source familiar with the matter tells CBS News the 2 Americans reported effects similar to the victims in Cuba. The husband and wife were flown out of Tashkent, Uzbekistan's capital, by the State Department for evaluation, according to a source. Their current medical condition is unclear. 2 U.S. security sources say Russia may be involved in that incident and in the sonic attacks in Cuba.
The Russians have the means, the motive, and the opportunity.
Foreign policy professor William Leogrand says Russian President Vladimir Putin has been trying to exert his nation's influence abroad.
It seems that this all began.
So because he has the means and because he has the motivation and because he's tried to assert himself abroad, but that would sound like that you could describe China or France that way.
And just around the same time that President Obama expelled 35 Russian diplomats because of Russia's interference in our election.
Victims of the attacks in Cuba describe hearing a loud, high-pitched sound in unusual places, often in their homes. The Associated Press obtained this recording. 24 confirmed victims face a range of health issues, including hearing loss and mild traumatic brain damage. An American tourist staying at the Hotel Capri in 2014 suspects he too suffered a sonic attack and described the sensation.
It went from the tip of my toes, through my toes, down through the arch of my foot and up to my ankles. And I could feel a little bit in my fingertips.
When asked about the latest case in Uzbekistan, the State Department told CBS News, "We ensure our personnel are examined and receive appropriate treatment." Following our report, spokeswoman Heather Nauert tweeted, "There has been no incident in Uzbekistan."
There was not an interest on the part of the U.S. government in having this go public. They don't know if something happened just yet.
So at the end of the report, we discovered that there may not even have been an attack, but yet this attack that may not have happened is likely linked to Russia. Okay.
USAID, an independent federal agency that provides foreign assistance, referred all our questions to the State Department. The Russian government has previously denied any involvement in the attacks and has even offered to assist the Cubans in their investigation.
I'm not going to dignify that with an answer.
Okay, very good. Yeah, but it's definitely the Russians. There's a story going around right now. I've had a conversation with a couple of Unfilter listeners in person about this very topic because it keeps coming up and it personally affects me. And that's the constant banging of the drum about the threat that drones pose to airlines.
New research commissioned by the FAA finds a high-speed collision between a drone and an airliner would be worse than a bird strike.
No shit. Really, you know what else is if somebody threw a rock super far up into the sky, like 400 feet, that would be worse than a bird strike. You know what else is worse than a bird strike? Maybe a large piece of ice. Okay, so they use this no shit fact to just drive up the hype level. And what you really should be listening is, we're going to take away your rights to use things in the air. Even though the airspace is, we're not talking at the same altitude that these airplanes fly at, and we're talking a massive magnitude of difference. We're talking massive. And a lot of these drones, especially any of the more recent ones, have software GPS-based restrictions to completely prevent them from flying around airports.
Newly released animation shows how a drone could cause significant damage to a...
So they come up with an animation that shows a drone crashing into the engine of an airplane. Why this airplane would be at 300 feet, I don't know. If it's landing or taking off, sure, but the drones can't fly there, and that's illegal. There's already laws in place for that today.
Plane's engine or tail area.
So the guy, what I love about this is just they play this destruction porn in a loop to look at the damage that theoretically could be caused by an object that's made of harder materials than an animal.
This year, the FAA has received an average of 250 reports of drones near airports every month.
Now that is, be clear about that, near airports, not over the airport, not crashing into planes. They're not collisions. It's 250 reports of drones near airports.
That's up from 159 for most of last year.
Now, why wouldn't you just make it illegal to have drones that don't have GPS coordinate restrictions? Why do we just have to take everyone's rights away?
Chris Van Cleve is at Reagan National Airport outside Washington with a look at the danger. Chris, good morning.
The dude's standing there like an idiot at an airport holding some piece of crap like Phantom 2 drone that doesn't have any GPS restrictions.
Well, good morning. This research used computer simulations to confirm what many in the aviation industry had long suspected, that drones, even small ones like this, can present a real threat to aircraft. That's because they're made of dense plastic, there are metal components, their batteries, their cameras. Essentially, it packs a much bigger punch than a bird.
Oh, well, and you know what? The computer simulations prove it, guys.
Remember, it was bird strikes that shut down the engines on the Miracle on the Hudson plane. The Los Angeles Police Department depends on its helicopters to get on scene fast.
So, you see, like the equivalency there. So because this could cause more damage than a bird, and because birds have caused damage before, drones are obviously a big threat.
16 or 18, are you working something near Glendale?
MBDI's in the sky. They fly fast and they fly low, which has pilot Kevin Cook always looking out for drones.
We impact a drone. Now we're going to have 5,500 pounds of aircraft with 130 gallons of jet petroleum coming down into a residential neighborhood.
God, I've talked to some pilots, and there are some that sound just like this guy. They are such dicks because what it is, at the core of it, is they hate that you can just go get a toy and you can fly it, and you're in their air, after they had to go through arduous training. They had to get shit pay for years. They may still be getting shit pay. They are an elite kind of skill set where, this is like something that people, oh, you're a pilot? Oh, wow, geez, wow, yeah, did you know that Bill over here is a pilot? No shit, where do you fly? Bill, that's amazing. That kind of thing. And so they don't like that all of a sudden these jackass vloggers and photographers can start launching these things up in the air. But the thing is, the reason why I think it's so damn important is because technology can solve this problem. In fact, there's already solutions in place in modern drones, like I just mentioned. And it's fundamentally critical to citizen journalism and to... Well, honestly, I just feel like it's our right. As long as it's safe, as long as you're not flying into planes, as long as you're not flying over airports, and as long as you're not going above 500-600 feet, I really don't see the problem at all. In fact, I think it's kind of going to be huge for humanity. It's going to be a really good thing.
In August 2015, a drone came within 50 feet of an LAPD helicopter as it was circling, searching for a suspect.
But now, you see, that's funny because that was one of their own drones. Okay. I mean, I know it wasn't one of their own drones, but it was like, I guess, it was somebody there trying to do journalism. So, yeah. Okay. I don't know. I guess I feel like there should be an exception for that, especially since there was no collision. But anyways, I just could go on that all day long. I thought I wanted to just move on because I could just rant and rant. I'll never get through that clip. I want to just look at this clip with you guys and just sort of watch the scenery here. So going back to Donald Trump's statement, this is right after he gets done ripping Chuck and Nancy. He's made a few mentions to the fact that General Mattis is sitting next to him, and he then tosses to General Mattis, and I can't tell if Mattis wasn't expecting this, but what happens really feels like political theater to me.
And with that, I may just have General Mattis say just a couple of words about what he has found out. General, do you want to say just a couple of little pieces of information?
Mr. President, Senator, Speaker, a little over 2.5 hours ago, North Korea launched an intercontinental ballistic missile. It went higher, frankly, than any previous shot they've taken. It's a research and development effort on their part.
You see how he's talking to him like it's the first time he's ever said this, but obviously he's already briefed the president. So now it's almost like they're doing it for performance in front of the camera. But I don't know. It seems odd.
Continue building ballistic missiles that could threaten everywhere in the world, basically. And in response, the South Koreans have fired some pinpoint missiles out into the water to make certain North Korea understands that they could be taken under fire by our ally. But the bottom line is it's a continued effort to build a threat, a ballistic missile threat that endangers world peace, regional peace, and certainly the United States.
Wow, there you go. So there's the briefing they did for the camera. Speaking of Trump, he got in some hot water this week. People making a lot of hay out of this one.
President Trump making the controversial comment during a White House ceremony honoring Navajo code talkers, the Native American veterans who developed secret communications that helped win World War II.
And I just want to thank you because you're very, very special people. You were here long before any of us were here. Although we have a representative in Congress who they say was here a long time ago. They call her Pocahontas. But you know what? I like you because you are special.
Jeez, that feels like he's delusional right there. That was not the fact that he made the Pocahontas joke, although it was sort of surprising he couldn't help himself. But the breathing and then the awkwardness, but I like you, feels like when my grandparents were losing it.
Time ago, they call her Pocahontas. But you know what? I like you.
That is... I don't know. Doesn't that feel like a little, I don't know, like his brain's not working so good right there?
Although we have a representative in Congress who they say was here a long time ago. They call her Pocahontas. But you know what? I like you because you are special.
That Pocahontas quip, an insult he's hurled at Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren before. Warren came under fire as a Senate candidate for claiming Native American ancestry during her academic career.
Pocahontas, that's this Elizabeth Warren. I call her Goofy.
Today in the Oval Office, those Native American veterans didn't react, but Senator Warren lashed out.
It is deeply unfortunate that the President of the United States cannot even make it through a ceremony honoring these heroes without having to throw out a racial slur.
Yeah, but it is extremely beneficial for you because it keeps your brand name in the media, doesn't it?
Moments later, the White House responding to Warren.
That's a ridiculous response.
Is it appropriate for the president to use a racial slur in any context?
I don't believe that it is appropriate for him to make a racial slur or anybody else.
This is a racial slur, so why is it appropriate for him to use that?
Like I said, I don't think that it is, and I don't think that was certainly not the president's intent.
Tonight, the veterans in the Oval Office released a statement saying they didn't want to get involved in the political dispute.
He was very cordial and very nice with inviting us to recognize the Navajo Code Talker.
A new firestorm during a critical week for the president as he fights for tax reform and a much-needed legislative win. Complicating matters, a report by the Congressional Budget Office, which found the tax bill could wind up costing Americans who make less than $75,000 a year more. At least one Republican senator is still a no vote, and Republicans...
So we'll wait on the tax thing. I hate how they transition from one topic to the other. I hate that. I don't know. I just thought that I don't know. That moment, chat room seems to think it was funny. They seem to think it was a funny joke. To me, it seemed a little wandery, a little too shaggy. I don't know. It seemed to really freak out the CNN panelists, that's for sure.
Obama advisor, CNN senior political commentator, and X-Files host David Axelrod.
So CNN's really been railing on Trump this week in a whole new way. I know that sounds, well, of course they have, Chris, but it's really, I don't know, it's changed. It's changed. And they really turned it up to 11 when Trump seemed to imply that he didn't believe that the Access Hollywood tape of him say grab him by the pee was real.
And CNN senior political analyst David Gergen. David Gergen, let me start off with you. I mean, again, that now there's 3 people who have told the New York Times that the president has raised questions about the authenticity. It's interesting that Maggie Haberman said that to one senator, he talked about maybe hiring people to figure out the authenticity of this. That brings me back to the Obama birth certificate, where then citizen Trump claimed that he had hired private investigators to go to Hawaii. We actually had, or Gary Tuchman, among other reporters, was on the ground in Hawaii talking to pretty much anybody you would possibly talk to, and none of those people he had talked to had been questioned by any private investigators, and there's no evidence the president ever did hire private investigators like he said he did.
Well, Anderson, we've been here before. I mean, he said he would hire private investigators. He didn't. He said he was going to sue the women after he became president who had accused him of sexual harassment, over a dozen. He never did that. So that pattern is clear. But there's another pattern that I find troubling, in fact, disturbing. Several people who are acquainted with him and worked with him in New York have told me in the past, sometimes he changes his mind about what happens. And he actually starts believing the second version, that it becomes a reality to him. I don't know whether he forgets what the first version was or not, but I think the real issue now is, does he actually believe it's not his voice? Has he changed his mind? In which case, it raises a lot of questions about just where he is in life.
David Axelrod, maybe it's because I've been off a week, and when you're not in this on a daily basis, you suddenly look at it from a slight distance, and you realize just how friggin' bizarre this is. I mean, it seems when you're doing it every single day, after a while, it starts to seem normal. But when you're away for it for a week and you come back, I mean, we're talking about the president of the United States telling people, now, according to the New York Times, 3 people, that what he apologized for, what he talked about in the debate that I co-moderated,
he's losing it,
is not authentic.
Yeah, you asked earlier whether this was some kind of strategy. I think David Gergen raises a really important point. Here it comes. I don't know whether it's strategy or sort of a sociopathology that causes him to say these things. I really don't know. I think it may very well be that he persuades himself that this is not his voice, that he persuades himself that he's the most accomplished president in his first 10 months in history, that he persuades himself of these things and really believes it. And that may be one reason why he delivers it in ways that some of his supporters find authentic. Because in his mind, it's absolutely the truth.
You see, so they're psychoanalyzing the president now, and they've figured it all out. And they may be onto something. They're definitely playing into Scott Adams' prediction, though, that there would be a phase where we go from Trump is Hitler to Trump is completely incompetent. And we do seem to be in the incompetency phase now. Now, if Scott Adams' predictions pan out, if I recall off the top of my head, the next phase for Trump would be, well, he's getting results, but we don't like him. So incompetent begins to fade away. And what we hear more of is, of course, it's not ever a 1-0 switch. It's not binary. It's a gradient. But what you begin to hear more of is, yeah, well, he's gotten some shit done, and I don't really like it, but at least he's getting stuff done. And when you hear the media kind of framing things more like that, then it would seem Scott Adams' next predictions panning out. But right now, we do seem to be in the incompetence phase. I don't know, I find that interesting. Now, there's a story out there that just sort of really reeks of police corruption. Like, have you ever seen The Shield? Like Vic Mackey in The Shield? This seems like a story that behind the scenes, Vic Mackey was behind this.
A week after Baltimore detective Sean Suiter was shot and killed, the revelation from the city's police commissioner was stunning. Suiter was set to testify before a federal grand jury the next day against 8 elite Baltimore officers already indicted in a police corruption investigation. But the commissioner says there is no evidence that Suiter was set up.
The BPD and the FBI do not possess any information that this incident is part of any conspiracy. The evidence, in fact, refutes that notion.
Police say evidence on Suiter's clothing suggests a struggle. A 3-second radio transmission may have captured the moment Suiter was shot with his own gun.
We do not know where these shots came from. We have officers in bad locations. Let everybody take cover somewhere, okay?
Suiter and his partner were investigating a 2016 triple murder when he approached a suspicious individual in a vacant lot. His partner was across the street at the time of the shooting. Police insist he's not a suspect. An 18-year veteran and father of 5, Suiter was set to testify against fellow cops for allegedly stealing money, property, and drugs.
Oh, that's interesting. He was going to testify against fellow cops and then wound up dead right before he was going to testify. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about Bitcoin.
Philippa, thanks very much. The value of Bitcoin has officially gone past $10,000 for the first time.
Yeah, and then it went down. And now it's actually, as we record, back up over $10,000, I believe. It's just up and down.
Just days after the cryptocurrency crossed the $9,000 mark. That means the total value of all Bitcoins in existence are worth more than $167 billion. But with me to talk about this is June-In Wong, who's technology reporter at Quartz. Hi there, June. So who is buying Bitcoin to push it up to this extent?
I think that's the $10,000 question. We do know, for instance, that Coinbase, one of the biggest Bitcoin wallet and exchange companies, they've been adding hundreds of thousands of people over the last few days. So it does appear like a lot of retail consumer investors are getting into Bitcoin.
Is this a bubble? And if it is a bubble, when it bursts, some investors will be seriously short in their digital wallets, won't they?
Absolutely. And I think, speaking to people in the industry, I don't think even the most ardent Bitcoin promoter would deny that this is a bubble, that this is overvalued. Many of them have expressed concern and nervousness at how quickly the price has risen. But, it's still quite difficult to lend, to borrow money, to buy cryptocurrencies. So you could argue that
it's kind of amazing that it's doing as well as it is. Coinbase must be really the company that's really raking it in right now. Isn't that something? Makes me wish I would have stuck around mining for forever. I gave up ages ago. Once you had to switch to ASICs, it just got too rich for my blood. It seemed like the investment in the machinery was not quite worth it unless you could really stick with it. So I decided to not mine anymore, but I kind of regret it. I kind of do. Now, there is a story here that you may have seen floating around the web this week. It was big in Seattle for obvious reasons here, which you'll see in a moment. And it made me think about this Bitcoin coverage. This is how the media covered Amazon in 1999. I'm just going to play a bit of it. It's from 60 Minutes, and it's obvious there's a bias. Like, they just think he's such a joke. They try to make him look like a loser. Jeff Bezos.
Amazon only exists on the computer screen. But Bezos does have an office, so we wangled an invitation. And where's Amazon's headquarters?
Now, this is where it begins, right here. This is where they begin to make a mockery of Amazon. This is back in 1999.
The public relations people told us to come to 1516 2nd Avenue between Pike and Pine in Seattle. But when we passed the pawn shop and the porno parlor, the wig store and the down-market teriyaki joint...
Hey, that teriyaki joint is perfectly fine. That's uncalled for.
We didn't see anything that looked vaguely cutting edge. No corporate drives or office towers. Just a heroin needle exchange and an old building called Columbia.
Yeah, the Columbia Tower, or like the Columbia Building, sorry, is it's very easy to find. Like, they go way over to make it sound like it's buried somewhere. It's so overdramatic already.
But it had the number 1516, so we walked inside.
You know, the street address.
And there it was, the logo known to every web shopper in the world. Upstairs, it doesn't look very high-tech either. More like a college dorm than a corporate headquarters. And then there's the boss. You generally hear him before you see him. It's the ear-piercing laugh of billionaire Jeff Bezos. Now, I've heard a lot about your desk.
It's a door with 4x4s.
Come on.
What?
I mean, you can afford a better desk than that.
They go through a really awkward interview with Jeff, too, where they ask him lots of personal questions.
So that in a few decades from now, I'm not going to regret it?
That's exactly right. I want to have lived my life in such a way that when I'm 80 years old, I've minimized the number of regrets that I have. And I think actually a lot of people do that. I think they, even if they don't, call it something as dorky as regret minimization framework, they behave that way anyway. They think that way.
But for you, it was not carpe diem. It was not wine, women, and song.
No. I don't go in for carpe diem. I go in for regret minimization framework. Absolutely.
When Bezos left that Wall Street job in 1994, he followed that old American edict, go west, young man. He and his wife didn't know where they were going. In fact, the movers packed their things and were already on the road when Bezos phoned them to say he had decided on Seattle. His other big decision? Books. Sell books.
Through the whole report, they fail to get it, of course. And you get the point now. In fact, you can watch the whole thing if you like. It is interesting to see them go through and talk about the data center and the recommendation API and the fact that it's way overvalued.
Amazon has growth potential that Sears doesn't.
A couple of geeks who sketched out some software. Sears.
Investors are focused on the future. Amazon has growth potential that Sears doesn't.
A couple of geeks who sketched out some software that could destroy Sears Roebuck.
That's the beauty of technology and the microprocessor. We've never seen anything like it.
But history has seen revolutions before, one thing supplanting another. Could Amazon and its tributaries be flowing towards the shopping mall and eventually drown it out? If you were running Walmart today, would you feel threatened by Amazon?
Absolutely.
Would you decide to go after them?
Absolutely.
Oh, that guy was right. That guy was right. It's interesting. You can watch the whole clip in the supporters sync. There's a trend that I would like your input on when you're watching maybe... Well, I don't know. I was just thinking maybe leave it on the YouTube comments, but then YouTube will profile this video as dangerous. But I was going to ask you, what do you think about the fact that gun sales are just exploding? When Obama was president, I thought, oh, well, everybody thinks Obama's going to make guns illegal, so everybody's buying guns. And the gun owners, Obama's the best thing that ever happened to gun shops. They do that all the time. But now that Trump's president, it doesn't seem to matter what happens. There's very little talk of changing the gun laws. But yet, the FBI says gun sales hit a record numbers on Black Friday.
The FBI says this Black Friday set a new record for gun background checks on a single day. In all, the Bureau received more than 203,000 requests. The previous record, set last year, was 185,000. The number of gun sales yesterday might be higher than the number of gun checks. That's because a buyer can purchase multiple firearms in a single transaction.
It's interesting. It's interesting that they're going like crazy, right? Why are they selling? What does that tell us? There seems like there should be some sort of interesting economic data in that. And then for our last clip of the overtime, of course, we were going to continue the live stream, but for our last clip for the overtime today, this is the ultimate bummer when you get busted at work by a student.
A teacher in Indiana is facing felony drug charges because video surfaced of what appears to be the teacher cutting lines of cocaine right in her classroom. Students captured this video as they waited for class to begin. It shows the English teacher, 24-year-old Samantha Cox, hunched over a book in her lap. She is now being held on drug charges, including felony possession of a controlled substance.
Man, ratted out by your own students. What are you doing not locking the door? Everybody knows when you're doing coke at school, you lock the door. Thanks for joining us, guys. See you next week. Have a good one.
Mommy needs a joint. Reclaiming my time. While you're laughing, the hackers are dropping malware into your system. OMG, OMG, OMG. Reclaiming my time.